Hey, it's Dave Brown here, host of Now with Dave Brown on AMI. Check out this latest highlight from the show. As the crisis progresses in Ukraine, Ukrainians continue to seek refuge in neighboring countries abroad. But what about the situation for people with disabilities? Joining us now to share more is Yuliia Sachuk, the head of the organization Fight for Right. Hello, Yuliia. Thank you for making time to be with us this morning.
Hi, good morning.
So, Yuliia, tell me a little bit about the situation right now for people with disabilities in Ukraine.
People with disabilities in Ukraine, as I don't know, maybe expectedly, they feel left behind because of many problems and obstacles such as infrastructural inaccessibility, a lack of accessible transportation, and one of the main reasons is lack of coordination efforts from the national government and international organizations in organizing a response for the war of Russia against Ukraine.
How is your organization stepping in to try and bridge these gaps and help these people?
Actually, we are by ourselves people with disabilities, and we work in Ukraine for many years. We're fighting for UN CRPD implementation in Ukraine. So our response is organic desire to help ourselves and our community. Months before the war, I started this process, and I was searching for different international practice and standards, trying to push on our government to be ready. And now we have a group of more than 30 people. Most of them are people with disabilities themselves, international volunteers who take requests from Ukrainians with disabilities on evacuation, and we work on them 24/7. And we use by support also of community of people with disabilities, mainly who donated for this reason on our Gofundme platform. And for me, it's very important, and for our community at all, it's like such unity of people with disabilities around the world.
What kind of assistance and help do you need from international organizations right now to help people with disabilities get out of Ukraine?
I visit this 2 weeks, last 2 weeks after my evacuation, I visited a lot of events and international organizations and platforms. And usually I ask about direct support, because many of these organizations, I understand that they are work for many years, but usual their work, like to make statements and to collect data, it's okay. But now we need really direct support. We need more accessible transportation, especially for people with severe disabilities. We need more accessible accommodations. We need more volunteers and human rights resources, because really our initiative is volunteer initiative, and we need also support on pushing this response on the national and international level, like practical support, not only statements, words, and declarations.
Yuliia, we have shared a couple of stories in our news reports about neighboring countries like the Czech Republic, like Slovenia, like Poland, offering a lot of support for individuals for seeking refuge from Ukraine. But how are those countries doing when it comes to offering support for people with disabilities who can get out?
Differently, mostly it's like because of lack of coordinative efforts, people with disabilities, it's an issue of your own success. Organizations of people with disabilities from neighboring countries, they are very helpful, but we also understand that their capacities are limited. And in case of our initiative, we are really we are careful about people's needs, who needs a wheelchair, who needs caregiver, personal assistance. But as I mentioned before, it would be nice to have good coordination on these processes, because for many Ukrainians with disabilities, evacuation and such trip, it can be first time abroad. Many of them don't know languages. Many of them don't know to whom to ask about medical support, assistive technologies. And in this case, it's issue of your own, how are you lucky and what volunteers will be helpful. And also knowledge about disabilities, because yes, volunteers are doing the best what they can, but to know how support and how what people with disabilities are needed, it's also very important.
Yuliia, I cannot imagine how exhausting and how difficult these last couple of weeks have been on you and your colleagues and these volunteers on the ground. How are you holding up?
I feel nice. I feel nice. I believe in Ukraine. I believe in our people, in our forces, and I believe in our victory. And for me, the biggest inspiration for me is our example of unity of people with disabilities themselves, who took this responsibility, and now we show the world that in the darkest time, people with disabilities themselves can take this responsibility and can be effective. Because when we talk about this 21 days of the war, we see that we are the most effective when we talk about our own lives and solutions.
Yuliia, you mentioned the Gofundme. How can people support the cause of Fight for Right?
We launched a Gofundme platform, support for Ukrainians with disabilities, and every can choose amount, but also very important and very helpful for us will be volunteering in our initiative. Also, it can be related to searching for accommodation abroad, to help to find medical support for Ukrainians with disability, to connect, psychological support, logistics issue. We have a lot of options for everyone who have time and desire to help us and to help the world, because one of our goals is not only to help and to support Ukrainians with disabilities now, but also to improve existing international standards and mechanism, because we are evidence that they are not good enough and they are not very effective when we have this urgent situation of emergencies.
Yuliia, I know you and your colleagues are working so hard in these difficult times. Thank you for taking a couple of minutes to speak with us today.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Do you want to dive into more conversations like this? Watch Now with Dave Brown weekdays at 9 a.m. Eastern on AMI TV or download the podcasts wherever you listen. Do you want to dive into more conversations like this? Watch Now with Dave Brown weekdays at 9 a.m. Eastern on AMI TV or download the podcasts wherever you listen.